So up to now we have seen the basic concept of object-oriented programming language, where we have added some examples in our previous sessions. Also we have learned the concept of class and object. We have learned the procedure-oriented programming language versus object-oriented programming language. Also we have seen some features of object-oriented programming language. Now let's start with the first program which we require to write in object-oriented programming language. So before going to start this example, we will see some definition of class, member functions, data members and access specifier. So let's understand the following points with the example. First we are going to see the definition of class, data members, member functions and access specifier. So let's understand the definition of class. A class in C++ is the building block that leads to object-oriented programming. It is a user-defined data type which holds its own data members and member functions, which can be accessed and used by creating an instance of the class. A C++ class is like a blueprint for an object. A class is a user-defined data type which has data members and member functions. So data members are the data variables and member functions are the functions used to manipulate these variables. And together these data members and member functions defines the properties and behavior of the object in a class. For example, we already seen this example. Here again I am adding that part. So consider the class of a cars. There may be many cars with different names and brands, but all of them will be share some common properties, like all of them will have four-wheeler, speed limit, mileage range, etc. So here car is the class and wheel, speed, limit, mileage and are their properties. So in the above example of car, the data members will be speed, limit, mileage, etc. and member functions can be apply brakes, increase the speed, like that. Now let's understand how to declare an object in C++ program. Also we are going to see the defining a class in a C++ program. So we require the syntax for this particular declaration. An object is an instance of a class. When a class is defined, no memory is allocated, but when it is instantiated, that is, an object is created, memory is get allocated to that particular object. A class is defined in C++ using the keyword class followed by the name of the class. The body of the class is defined inside the curly braces, that is nothing but curly brackets, and terminate by a semicolon at the end, which I have shown in this particular example. Now let's understand how we are going to declaring an object in C++ program. So when a class is defined, only the specification for the object is defined. No memory or storage is allocated. To use the data and access functions defined in the class, you need to create the object. So the syntax for creating the object is, first you have to write down the class name followed by object name and then you have to write down the semicolon. Now let's understand how to access data members and member functions. The data members and member functions of a class can be accessed using the dot operator with the object. For example, if the name of the object is obj and you want to access one member function, the name I have given as print name, then you have to write object name dot method name. That means obj dot print name. Now let's understand how to access the data members. The public data members are also accessed in the same way as we are going to access with the object name dot method name. But the private data members are not allowed to be accessed directly by the object. So accessing a data members depends on access control of the data members. So the access controls is nothing but private, public and protected, which is called as access specifier. This access control is given by access modifiers in C++. There are three basic access modifiers, or we can call as access specifiers in C++. So first one is public, second one is private and third one is protected. So in this slide I have mentioned the use of 2 points. The first point is the use of header file, which is nothing but IOStream, and another part I have mentioned over there that using namespace std. So first we will go for the #include iostream.h header file. So in C++, in order to include the header file iostream in the program is used to invoke the commonly used functions like cout, cin. iostream stands for input output stream. It is used to include the header file. Now we'll go for the next point where I have mentioned using next line of code is given as using namespace std. Now what is the use of this line in our program? So first let's understand what namespace is. Consider there are two students in one classroom having the same name, for example Vishal. Now if we need to differentiate each of them, we would have to use some info along with their name, like their area of living, physical characteristics, like that. Same goes with the namespace in C++. You might have a variable name, for example value, in your C++ program, and this may be a library that contains a variable name value in it. Now there is no way to the compiler to know which version of variable value is being called in the code. A namespace is designed to overcome this difficulty and is used as additional information to differentiate similar functions and variables, etc., with the same name available in the different libraries. Using namespace, you can define the context in which names are defined. Now let's see what namespace std is. std is abbreviation of standard. std is a standard namespace. cout, cin and a lot of other things are defined in it. You can also call these functions using std scope resolution cout, std scope resolution cin, like that. Now what is the meaning of using over here? The keyword using technically means use this whenever you can. This refers in this case to the standard namespace. So whenever the computer comes across cout, cin, endl or any other of the matter, it will read it as std scope resolution cout, std scope resolution cin or std scope resolution endl. When you don't use the std namespace, the compiler will try to call cout or cin as if it weren't defined in a namespace. Since it doesn't exist there, the computer tries to call something that doesn't exist. Hence, an error occurs. So, essentially, without using namespace std, when you want to write a program, then you have to use before cout statement as std scope resolution cout, which is to be mentioned in this example. So in this slide I have mentioned C++ program to demonstrate accessing of data members. So the first line of code I have added here #include iostream.h. Second line of code I have added here using namespace std. So now you understand why I have written using namespace std in this program. Now in this program I define one class. In that class, I defined access specifier, I have defined data members and member functions. When I say I define here class, then you have to write a keyword class with the name of the class I have given here as stud. In this class, if I say opening brace and closing brace of that particular class, with the at the end of the brace you can give the semicolon, that means it terminates the class definition. So here I define access specifier as public. That means outside the class, whichever the object I have created for this class can access both data members and member functions. So in this, I define your data member as string variable as a first name. In this, I define one member function as print name. So the return type for this function is void. In this function, I just written one cout statement which is to be get printed this first name. Now in the main function, first of all you have to declare an object of the class stud. So I define here the object with the help of class name and object name. So class name is stud, obj1 is my object name, and then semicolon. Now to access the data members, what the things we require here? I have to access the data members with the help of dot operator. So I have to use object name dot data members name. So here I have defined obj1 dot first name is equal to my name Fatima in double quotes I have mentioned. Now in this particular function, if I want to access the member function, then I have to again use object name dot method name. So for this purpose I have to use obj1 dot print name. Print name is a member function defined in my class. So whatever I am printing, the access for this return type for this main is integer. So I have to return something to main function. So I am just written here return 0. So in the print name function, my name will be get printed with the help of cout statement. So in this slide, I have mentioned one simple program, C++ program, to add two numbers. This program is not using the class concept. So before going to class concept, how you have to write a simple C++ program is mentioned in this slide. So I have to use first header file, then using namespace std, then I have to write down the main function. In the main function, I am defining three variables as an integer data type ABC. With the help of cout, whatever the things I have written, that will be get printed on my output screen. So the syntax for cout is cout, then these brackets you have to write down, and whatever you have to print, you have to print in the double quotes, same as it is whichever we are using in the printf. Now cin is a function which is used to take the data from the console. So I have written here cin a and b value I am getting enter from the console. Now whatever the operation I have to perform the addition of two numbers. So just by using the operator plus, I can perform the addition and store the result in the another variable which is called as a C variable, and just printing that sum with the help of cout statement. Now in this program, I have defined same program for C++ addition program, but now I am using here class concept. So I define one class mathematics. In that I define two variables integer x and y. Now in that I have to define the access specifier as public for the data members and member functions. So here I define two member functions, void input and void add. Void input function is used to take the input from the console. Void add is basically used to just getting the addition of two numbers, and the result will be get printed. Now in the main method, I have to first create an object of the class with the help of class name and object name. So mathematics is my class name, object name is m. So mathematics m is my creating an object of the class. Now to access the member function, I have to use dot operator. So object name dot method name, so m dot input and m dot add.